This episode of the All About Nothing podcast is brought to you by GOT Sound Studio. GOT Sound Studio offers a variety of experiences: music, voice, and instrumental recording and production, video, and still photography. GOT Sound Studio has all of your media needs met. Owned and operated by Dominique Stewart, the Neek the Geek, experienced artists as well as up-and-coming will find everything they need to create. Bring your media needs to one of the most talented producers and engineers in the business, Neek the Geek. You can find details by visiting gotsoundstudio.com or calling 803-243-2302. You can also find links in the Friends of the Pod section of our website. Visit theallaboutnothing.com.
The All About Nothing podcast
may have content and language
that isn't appropriate for some.
Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the All About Nothing podcast. I am Barrett Gruber, and this week I'm joined by recently announced Democratic candidate for South Carolina State House District 26 and returning podcast champion, Matt Vilardebo. Welcome, Matt.
What's up, Barrett?
I want to admit something that the first time you were on a podcast with us, that I pronounced your name incorrectly.
Yes.
I have practiced it. In fact, every time you send me a text message, that literally I will look at the phone and go, oh, it's Matt Vilardebo.
Very good. So it's like I always tell people, it's pronounced just like it's spelled.
Yeah. And my phonetics is terrible, to be completely honest with you. I could screw up anything.
You do good. You don't have that deep sweet T accent. That's where people run into big trouble. They throw extra R's into Vilardebo, and I'm like, oh wow, Lord. Slow down.
That could get potentially pretty messy. All right, please subscribe to the show, share it with all your friends. That's how we get new listeners. Also, please support us. Please consider supporting us financially by visiting theallaboutnothing.com. See, this is part of the issue. I have reading glasses back there, and I should be wearing them, but I'm not, and that's where I'm going to make mistakes. So I'll try again. Please also consider supporting us financially by visiting theallaboutnothing.com and becoming an official member and proudly calling yourself a true nothinger. Have a bunch of tiers available so they give you early access and access to exclusive content. Also, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts and you think we're worth it, go ahead and give us a review and drop us 5 stars. If you're not on Apple Podcasts, you can give us a review where you can. Share the episode with your family or friends. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and interact. Just search for The All About Nothing podcast or visit our website or for links, theallaboutnothing.com. Do have just a few shout-outs. Thank you to Mayor of the town of Blythewood, the Honorable Mayor Sloan Griffin III, as well as re-elected council member Donald Brock. Truly enjoyed sitting down with them. I think that, and actually I found out a little bit tidbit of information. Bill Kimler messaged me and said, hey, just so you know, Sloan Griffin's father, Sloan Griffin II, lives in Greenwood.
Oh, wow.
So that was an interesting tie-in. So
Bill always with the nuggets of information, never-ending source of nuggets.
Bill knows
Mr. Kimler.
So much useless information.
I don't know about useless. I'm not going to disparage Bill. He puts videos out when you disparage him, and
that's true.
I don't want to be on the receiving end of Bill's wrath.
Bill, I sincerely apologize. That was not.
Cry Eagles, cry.
Said a true Buccaneers fan. As well, I want to thank Carrie and Zach of the podcast What the Pod Was That, Ami of the podcast Welcome to Wonderland, and Micah, our dungeon master, for our latest adventure that continues to move us along. This is our Dungeons and Podcast series. We have 4 episodes, and we're going to be recording a brand new set of episodes coming up very soon. I'm actually hoping next weekend, because I'd like to get them all out of the way. But we just released the 4th episode, and it ends in a pretty major cliffhanger.
Oh, boy.
So if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, you should listen to all of those episodes.
12-sided die rolls.
Yeah. Zach, what's crazy, so I think we had it at the Columbia Comic Con, but Zach actually 3D printed a giant die 20 or 20 die that before it all started, before the Comic-Con started, we were taking it and rolling it on the floor, and whoever rolled a higher number won. But there
you go.
I was surprised that it didn't break.
Playing dice with a 20-sided
Yeah, exactly.
die.
Exactly. So season 2, we're going to start recording that here very soon. Lastly, I want to congratulate John Kosas Jr. of the Columbia Fireflies for his book signing back on December 7th. It was really cool to see. He got a bunch of people to turn out.
That's great.
All good books on Hardin Street, and the people who showed up got to ask him questions. John got to tell us about how why he decided to write a book and how all that came about, as well as interacting with some of the people that contributed to the book. So that was really, really cool.
I love when you have him on because
Yeah.
I love baseball.
Yeah.
So anytime somebody like comes and gives you something more than just
Oh, yeah.
like, you know, strikes and outs and pitches, and they kind of give you some of that richer history
Yeah.
and some of that more insightful baseball knowledge.
Well-
because baseball's been around forever, and it's like, you know, the purest American sport, I would say.
Braves just
Relatively untouched.
Yeah, the Braves just celebrated their 150th anniversary. You know,
Yeah.
between Massachusetts and Boston, and over to Milwaukee, and then Atlanta. So that was their. I think it was 1870, 72 or 73 or whatever was their initial start, and then and now 150 years later. So go Braves! Sorry.
That's all right. They good.
Yeah. So at this point, I'd like to introduce now returning champion and returning as a candidate
Yep.
for District 26 out of Fort Mill.
Correct.
It's very exciting that you're doing this again, and the potential that there could be a larger bump since there is not an incumbent.
Yeah, so Ray Felder had that seat when she's for 10 years now. So when she finally completes her term in office, she'll have held that seat for 12 years.
Okay.
And
Oh, that is good.
so she had a lot of like that easy support, you know,
Right.
people coming in, voting straight party ticket. And she did do a lot. I would never detract from what she actually accomplished. She did a lot for Fort Mill, helped out Fort Mill a lot. But she had, it's hard. It was time for her to retire. We kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I know that the Republicans won't have that strength of a built-in multi-year incumbent,
Right.
which is what they kind of need to carry that easily. So I feel like that role comes into play big time now. So I know we're going to get Democrats excited. We're heading into a presidential election year, and that tends to bring out a lot of the folks who don't maybe vote like they should in those non-presidential years.
So, because it's just us this time, there's a better opportunity, I think, for you to talk about your background as far as what it is with your experience that makes you suitable to run for this seat and win this seat.
Yeah, so I'm not a typical politician in that I'm not an attorney or a businessman, and there's nothing wrong with being an attorney or a businessman, but I'm more of an engineer. The work I do is very like data driven, and we believe in principles like defect elimination, root cause analysis, continuous improvement. And so I bring that mentality to my approach to politics. And right now, in my current role, I'm a program manager, and what I look after these multi-million-dollar capital budgets, and I oversee large maintenance modernization programs, essentially at government facilities. Right now, I'm working at Walter Reed Hospital up in Bethesda, Maryland, and so that sort of attention to detail, that ability to multitask, and the way I process information is more, let's get these facts together and find real solutions to fix problems. I feel like we have an absence from that in politics in general today, but certainly in this state.
Yeah.
The Republicans have had, this hegemonic control of the state for 2 decades. And year after year, they don't really get anything done. This could be the chance for them to seat the Republicans as like the party in this state and achieve some real greatness. Make these roads as best as they can be.
Yeah.
Fix public education. It's getting worse every year now.
Yeah.
We're on the 5th year in a row of a teacher shortage.
Yeah.
Especially in the special education area. And Ellen Weaver hasn't fixed anything, has she? She's a year into the job.
I cannot actually attribute anything to Ellen Weaver except for the strengthening of the Moms for Liberty group.
Yep.
This idea that South Carolina is going to begin to ban books specifically based on either their title or content, but the thing that I keep seeing the most is I keep seeing lists of books that she wants to ban from our elementary schools that are not books that are currently available in any elementary school. So it's basically just lip work. It's
somebody's feeding her information and she's not even bothering to like check on
Right.
what she's being fed. And, you know, I do want to go back to the qualifications part too. So the work stuff is great and it shows like an ability to handle responsibilities. And I've had like a nice career that's seen me come up from just a technician to an analyst to now I'm in program management.
Yeah.
And my bachelor's degree is in political science. I've managed to like work my way into an engineering career.
Yeah.
Just off of effort and willingness to want to learn and grow.
Yeah.
But back home, I've been in Fort Mill since 2017, and I feel like I've done an excellent job of ingraining myself in the community and becoming somebody who demonstrates through my actions how important Fort Mill is to me. The big problem we have in Fort Mill is there's a lot of development going on, and we can't keep up with it. So the roads are really bad. There's very few sidewalks. It's not a very walkable community. If you go even on something like Zillow, you'll see the walkability scores are very low for Fort Mill homes.
Yeah.
So when you're a small town, that's not, to me, the kind of small town you want to be, where if you would need to go anywhere, you've got to drive.
Yeah.
It's just baffling to me. So I see these things happening, and I feel like if I get involved in local politics, maybe I can help bring this change about. So I try and run for town council.
Right.
Doesn't work. I really got crushed in that election too. But I got the ear of people. They liked what I had to say. They found me to be somebody who genuinely has some concern and care for the community.
Yeah.
Which is what it's all about for me. Nobody moved to Fort Mill to be in a developer's paradise. People move to Fort Mill because they like that small town feel. And so this myth that, you know, only locals can govern there and, you know, it's kind of, you can't be an outsider and get elected or govern in Fort Mill.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's hogwash. We've grown so much, 128% population growth from census year to census year. So we're more people who aren't from there than are from there at this point.
Yeah.
And everybody deserves representation. And of I would say pretty much all those 128% move there to maintain that small town feel. So let's have some real representation from that population set. And I look at things different. The community isn't so sacred that you're not going to want to bring like real changes there.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how I've been able to get to where I'm at. I build relationships in the town. I show up, I do things, and I make myself available to people. I'm always there. I mean, if there's a town event, you're going to find me at it.
Yeah. No, I see the pictures. I see the pictures. So with that said, what was the motivation to go ahead and run for State House again?
Well, I got to admit, when the election came to an end last year, it was tough. It was a hard pill to swallow. I wasn't expecting to lose by the margin I did, and that was pretty upsetting for me.
Yeah.
But it was also frustrating because I wanted to make sure we kept like nose to the grind. Because even though the country got that blue wave, we got crushed by a red tsunami in South Carolina in 2022.
Oh, yeah.
So it was hard. We lost big time. Long-held Democrat seats in the state house were taken by Republicans. And the only real victory we could tout of a new seat was Heather Bauer.
Yeah, out of Columbia.
And she's like the Harry Potter of state house candidate. She's the child that lived.
Yeah.
And it was so difficult. And I was also dealing with some health issues, so I said, maybe I don't need to run again. And, I felt like maybe somebody else should step up.
Yeah.
And I just stayed busy. I kept doing things, going through motions, getting my health in order. I had some neck problems I had to get attended to. And eventually word got around that Ray Felder was going to retire.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if she retires, that'll change things. Well, then word got around that this woman, Elizabeth Enns, a Republican who ran against Brandon Guffey in the SC 46 primary, moved to Fort Mill.
Okay.
Okay, so Elizabeth Enns is a Ralph Norman endorsed MAGA Republican type.
Great.
Who moved to Fort Mill to run for SC 26.
Okay.
You couple that with the rumor that Ray's retiring, and I felt like I better start preparing to run for office again.
Yeah.
Nobody was kind of like raising a flag or, sending up the bat signal, if you were, to say, hey, I'm interested, I'm putting in the work now. Because running for office against local Fort Millians or somebody who's held office for 10 years, there's a huge popularity contest to that.
Right.
And you need to be out and about in town. You got to make yourself available and kind of make yourself a person of the people. And there's some like almost high school popularity contest to it. But it is the nature of the beast. And that I wasn't seeing that.
Yeah.
So that was, I began discussions with my family and my wife, and she was, okay, you can run, but you need help this time. You need to get some people to come work for you, pay them if you have to, but don't do this on your own again. You can't do it. You need the help. I can't be that for you. You need some folks to help you. So I was able to get that taken care of, which we can get to. And
you can go ahead and tell them.
So I was able to get Barrett to come on board and help me with the campaign. We have announced that on social media, so it's official. And I'll be announcing on social media soon, but Austin Jackson is also going to be on the campaign team.
Yep.
He'll be participating in a more limited basis until June. And after the primaries in June, he'll be fully engaged with the campaign and contributing in a larger way. Austin is a former president of the Young Democrats of South Carolina. He basically aged out of the role. He's about to turn 34. And great young man, very driven. He's worked on several presidential, state senate, congressional, all sorts of campaigns. Wealth of experience this young man has. Yeah. And he brings that youthful energy. I know he doesn't see himself as being that young in his early 30s, but I am 50. So I was like, bro, you are young.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited to be a part of it too, because I think ultimately that's what I saw in a lot of the Democratic campaigns, that it was just you. It wasn't, there wasn't a staff really available, and whether it's paid or not paid, that doesn't make any difference. I think that the experience of getting a candidate from candidate to nominee to elected is going to be, especially with you, you make it easy, to be honest with you, because you are so available, outside of work hours and things like that.
Yep.
But even with that, I know that I can get a hold of you almost any point, and if not, then you'll get back in touch with me. And I know that as a state representative, that is something that you will be available to your constituents, and that you will answer to them, that there will be transparency in your office.
Absolutely. I'm willing to make what I'd like to call the Kimmler commitment.
Yeah.
I will put out a monthly newsletter that isn't bogged down with political news speak, if you were.
Yeah.
Not a lot of partisan mumbo jumbo, giving you the facts, telling you what's coming up, what I'm going to support or not support, legislation that I'll be sponsoring or maybe even authoring, and sharing these facts with people on a monthly basis. I will make myself available in, at least quarterly in-person meetings with my constituents, maintain office hours, all that stuff. Constituent service is a bigger part of being a public servant than showing up in Columbia for 70 days.
Right.
So, and I'll give you an example, an uncommon example from a Democrat. My daughter is playing with her band in London for New Year's Eve, and we needed to get her passport renewed because she had her original when she was a minor and now she's an adult and she needs a new one.
Right.
So it's taken a long time to get passports now. I ran into Ralph Norman in Reagan Airport and talked to him and told him what we were going through, and my daughter got that passport in the mail 2 weeks later.
Very cool.
So that's constituent service. That's Ralph Norman's,
Yeah.
that's his office's job to handle that, and he handled it.
Yeah.
He knew who I was.
Yeah.
He could have done a myriad of things,
Sure.
I assume. But he took care of it, and that, to me, is what they do more of.
See, and that's different from what I deal with Joe Wilson. Is
that guy?
Yeah, Joe Wilson is not a Ralph Norman. That
No.
is, and not to endorse or give any sort of endorsement to Nancy Mace, but Joe Wilson is also not Nancy Mace, despite her policies and tendencies. At least from the people that I have spoken to that have had interactions with her, that she does do the things. For the most part, it seems as though she does those things in Congress for the people that she represents. Joe Wilson doesn't. So again, that's my personal experience based on the fact that I live in a Joe Wilson district, and I suffer, and we all suffer from that because he gets to vote in Congress.
My goodness.
So let's assuming you take office, what are going to be your top priorities legislatively?
So that hasn't been set in stone yet.
Sure.
I'm in the process of getting some town halls set up and doing some meetings with people so I can hear. I want to hear. That's what I really loved about running in 2022 was I was out there knocking doors like crazy. I mean, literally thousands of doors I personally knocked.
That was only a year ago.
Yeah.
That was only a year ago.
It feels like forever ago.
It does.
And but yeah, 2022, I knocked them doors, and people love that, and they share with you so much, and it really helped me define and refine my platform. Even then, I kind of pivoted on one or two things, but now I get a nice early start. More than likely, there won't be a Democrat primary, and I'm just going to watch these two Republican candidates who have declared tear each other apart for months, and I'm going to just build and do town halls and get that platform locked in. But without question, I know I don't need to go do town halls. One issue for sure is public education. Supporting public education, being a defender of it. And listen, I don't want to be the kind of Democrat politician that promises something I can't deliver on. I am going to be able to go to Columbia and work with Republicans who do not support this Moms for Liberty way of running our schools.
And they
exist.
Yeah.
But you're going to need to go make and build relationships with them. And I know that's one of those things that makes me special is I can go make those relationships with them. I don't alienate people with the things I say. I don't try to drive people away from me with sharp, nasty-tongued rhetoric. If you're going to be affected, you have to go and work with the Republicans as a Democrat minority in the state. It is a fact. So I'm going to go and work and build those relationships and build those coalitions. And we're going to put it into this like over-the-top parental rights nonsense. There's always been parental rights in our public schools. This is not new. This is not something that has been lacking.
Right. They
are public education centers funded by the taxpayers that any parent can go participate at any level they want to.
Right.
And none of that has ever been taken from them.
Yeah, it's important to note that even when we were kids in school, there were parent-teacher organizations that were attached to every single school, every single public school, and that was always something that a parent could choose to be a part of, where the decisions about those sorts of things were being made. I think one of the things that I get the most irritated about is how there is this overreach by school boards in how people think the school board is supposed to operate or what it is they're supposed to. Your school board is merely deciding how to spend the money.
Thank you. I was about to say that. It's their job to determine how those impact fees are spent.
Right.
And when they're going to build those new schools.
Right. That is it.
Now they've got them like, it's weird. I mean, I try to explain to people, there's no real power in being in the South Carolina State House. If you're doing it for power, something's wrong with you. There's a great opportunity to get out there and help people and do some good for a lot of people and make the world a better place for the future generations. And that's what it is for me. Any sort of notion that people would have of like there's power waiting there for somebody or somebody's actually trying to chase power. I mean, that it shows just a sort of level of naivety that's like staggering.
Yeah. I will admit, like the guy that represents my district at the House, he seems to be attaining power. R.J. May has found an avenue that is continuing to bring him in more and more campaign money for a district that he doesn't campaign for. He campaigned initially. He did campaign when he ran in 2020, but now it's I would like to see a Democrat in this district with the personality and the ability to, I guess, provoke R.J. May into having to campaign against him. I haven't seen that yet. And it's not me.
And that's a good segue. So I think there was always a lot of hope for Matt to be able to do that with Ray Felder in 2022, sort of provoke her into a debate, provoke her into things.
Her hearing aids weren't on either.
And it was very frustrating. Yeah, because she just... And again, she's in the catbird seat, so she can ignore me. She can be like, why am I going to debate him? He's not even going to... He might get 40% of the vote. And I get it, but it's... I know 24 is going to see debates.
Yeah.
I know it's going to see a lot more activity, a lot more involvement, but it's also going to see a sharply more partisan tone of things.
I think so.
And that'll make it tough, but I cannot wait to see how this Republican primary turns out. I'm just going to say that. I'm not pulling or hoping for either one of those two, and I'm not going to say anything about either one of them, but I know that those two are going to duke it out in that primary for sure.
Do you know those two individuals?
Yeah, so Elizabeth Enns is running. She's the MAGA Republican I was talking about that carpet bagged from Rock Hill to Fort Mill to run for office. And
so here's and just to understand, essentially, in order to be a candidate for a district, you have to live in that district.
And for like 90 days. You have to have established residency for 90 days.
But you have to live in that district.
Yep, within the boundaries of the district.
I guess I have a hard time understanding individuals that would find moving into a district as the opportunity to get themselves elected. Why? Not saying Elizabeth Enns specifically, but just that mentality. Because I'm middle class.
Yes.
I'm lower to middle class. It's a household of 5. We have one income, and we do well enough. And in our neighborhood, we're probably in the top, of that economic band. But I can't imagine even knowing someone that would be willing to say that seat's going to open, so I'm going to uproot my family and move them 16 miles that direction just to take advantage of a seat being open.
So I don't want to get too like Charlie Day from the meme on you, but there's a thread.
I was going to say the thread with the pins and
there's a thread.
Yeah.
So Ralph Norman is the thread, and this other man, Dennis Getter.
Okay.
So the Ralph, we all know who Ralph is. He is our congressman for Congressional District 5 here in South Carolina. And Dennis Getter is a very wealthy Republican donor that lives in Fort Mill.
Okay.
Millionaire. So he's probably personally funded Moms for Liberty within York County. He donates to all the Republican candidates that run, whether they're MAGA or not.
Yeah.
And he donates generously to them. So recently in York County, we had a big kerfuffle where the county council got involved in library books.
Okay.
And there was some banning, and there was some accusations saying that all my constituents are telling me something, even though no evidence of this communication from the constituents was ever produced.
Sure.
So they basically were able to make it so that now the county council appoints the library board. And they immediately removed 3 people from the library board and put Dennis Getter on the library board. Now, I don't know what Mr. Getter's qualifications are to be on the library board.
He read a book once.
That's what I would assume.
It was probably the Bible.
I could be wrong. I haven't really had a chance to get to know him very well. I've never seen him in an event I've been at, and I go to events that he would be at.
Yeah.
So I run in those circles in Fort Mill, but I would talk to him if I ever met him.
Yeah.
I don't think he would probably welcome that conversation with me at this point. But yeah, I mean, so those two have done so much in York County. Whenever there's an election night party, it's hosted by Ralph Norman at probably a Norman property, and all the Republican winners go, and all us Democrats are, probably sitting home crying by ourselves. But it's the truth, though, and I mean, hyperbole aside and all the jokes aside, so Ralph has been able to do this, and he's been very crafty. He supports Ray. He held that State House seat before Ray Felder took it, and it became SC-26 in the version you see today.
Yeah.
Ralph made sure that we got these Moms for Liberty School Board people front and center, and was able to get one of them in the Fort Mill School District and 3 in the Rock Hill School District.
Wow.
He supported this Elizabeth Enns woman who lost to Brandon Guffey, but when Brandon Guffey won, he was at Ralph Norman's election night party.
Okay.
So, they all kiss the ring, and he's kind of the power broker.
Yeah.
He's the kingmaker. And, it's frustrating, I know, because sometimes Democrats get caught up in things they shouldn't be.
Sure.
And they should be more focused on the real threat Ralph Norman poses, in my estimation, instead of like snarky memes and, making fun of him, treating him like he's stupid, because he's outplaying us and he's outmaneuvering us in York County.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, and again, South Carolina, they benefit from the fact that every 2 years it's either a governor race or it's either a presidential race, and there are too many people out there voting that are specifically just pulling that party line. And that's one of the reasons the Republicans were desperate last year to try and get the school board vote to become partisan, to be able to register as a Republican or a Democrat was on the ticket, at least here in Columbia, I believe it was, or in Lexington. It was, I assume it was statewide. But this idea that you would be able to pull the Republican ticket and then vote for only Republicans for school boards all around the state, which school boards should be a nonpartisan.
It should be. Absolutely.
There's
always nonpartisan.
Treasurer should be nonpartisan. Anyway, so, but one of the things you mentioned about education was teacher retention.
Yes.
As a representative, what are some of the things that South Carolina could be doing better for teacher retention?
So,
besides just funding.
Yep. So I live in Fort Mill, where our schools are great. We're not really feeling that crunch that the rest of the state is. But I have a responsibility to the citizens of South Carolina as a state representative.
Yeah.
And the state is hurting. And it is more than a money problem. There's so many obstacles, and there's so much of this antagonistic relationship with teachers and administration and governance and lawmakers. And that is something that must change. And one of the ways we can help do that is by removing obstacles to teachers unionizing in this state.
Sure.
And allowing teachers to unionize. We moved from Florida to South Carolina. My wife is a 21-year teaching veteran, public school teacher. Taught in Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough County, 9th largest school district in America. Really, really dedicated teacher. We move here, and she takes a massive pay cut.
Wow.
Teachers only get 3 days in Fort Mill. Only get 3 days off a year. They don't accrue. They accrue sick leave, but they don't accrue any other leave. It's just weird. They don't get a lunch break. They do lunch duty.
Wow, yeah.
I remember, to her credit, Ray Felder got a bill passed that got the elementary school teachers some free time to themselves so that they can go to the bathroom even. So unions, when people can have one super important skill set and can collectively bargain, it makes life better for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what teachers in this state need ultimately. The SCEA and the PSTA, both excellent organizations that do a lot to represent teachers and provide a voice for teachers and sort of a legislative way to make change for teachers, but they're not unions.
Yeah. They don't have the
ability to bargain
Right.
and bring people to the table and hold people accountable. And, you know, for lack of a better term, sometimes you got to put somebody over a barrel to negotiate better.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening like that here. So the teachers are kind of like, you know, being mistreated for like.
No, you're absolutely right. It is even South Carolina having some of the benefits of having a program that will pay off teachers' loans, student loans, and things like that. If they guarantee, you know, that they'll teach for whatever 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is.
My wife just got her loans paid off for that.
That's fantastic. But it should, you know, in my mind, because the cost of education at a state level is pennies. It doesn't cost the state of South Carolina to have to be able to retain those teachers over the course of 10 to 15 years or longer. I've got a friend who taught for 43 years, didn't retire until about 5 years ago. Or 10 years ago. And like when she retired, it was after 43 years of teaching. And all she got at the end of it was a state retirement that really doesn't pay for everything you need.
Yep.
But there aren't teachers that are sticking around for that long anymore because there's almost no benefit to it. How is it going to help these teachers? And then they're not getting the support they need from the school board, from and in some cases you've got principals that are being hired for these schools that are of that same, and I don't want to use the word MAGA, but of that that Moms for Liberty group. Bless you.
Woo!
Bless you. But you have principals that are filling these principal roles. You have these individuals filling these principal roles that are politicians.
Yes.
They're not of the they're not part of the education system. They're in there to lay the groundwork for what eventually I assume is going to be some sort of a Nazi similar takeover of education.
So the disparity between the Carolinas is disturbing. North Carolina is ranked 16 in the nation in public education. South Carolina is ranked 48.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you,
ridiculous.
Mississippi and Alabama.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate it.
But, I mean, that's disgusting. I mean, we're separated by an imaginary line, but, you know, that imaginary line is a time machine that takes you back about 40 years in time. Sometimes.
What are they doing different in North Carolina that South Carolina is not getting?
Electing Democrats.
Okay, that's fair. All right, that's fair. No, you know,
there's parity, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's other voices with real ability to make impactful change. Heather Bauer's been able to do that, and as just that one new voice that we got.
Yeah.
But you know, I was at an event a couple weeks ago, the SPRAD Issues Conference over in Spartanburg, and Vicki Ringer, who's Planned Parenthood Atlantic, she got up and said, listen, we got to hold all these seats and win some, or we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, that can segue right into another issue I'm sure you'll hear me talking a lot about, and that's the assault on women in this state.
Yeah. How many women are in the South Carolina Senate? Is it 5 or 6? Katrina Shealy's one of them. She represents me.
Yeah, so we have the 5 that stood up.
Right.
But I feel like, oh man, you got me on this
Well,
one.
that's okay, but yeah, so the Katrina Shealy and several of the other ones, there were 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 1 independent.
Yeah,
right?
Mia.
Yeah. And truly felt like you know, they were, well, first of all, if there are how many are in the Senate? 41. I can't remember how many are in the South Carolina Senate, but regardless, to only have 5 women as representation or 6 women as representation in the Senate. In the House, the percentage is smaller, which seems hard to do when there's more members, but I think the percentage is actually smaller per capita in the House of women representation.
It's disgusting. I mean, there's a general lack of representation throughout this state.
Sure, of course.
Even in, like, you were talking about principals in the Fort Mill School District, or the leadership roles, your principals and things like that, are mostly taken up by men.
Yeah.
That's a female-dominated industry. How does that happen?
Absolutely is. In fact,
it doesn't. It defies logic sometimes.
When I was in school in Atlanta, my elementary school was principal was a female, Dr. Cantrell, and then her assistant was also a female. So like the two administrative leadership roles at that school were both women. In high school, it was an individual, a man who was the principal, but the assistant principal was also a female. So I honestly, even when my kids were in or my son was in public school, I want to say I think that it was a male dominant here and even in Columbia, and that it's absurd because there are more women teachers out than there are men teaching, and I guess I don't understand how that happens.
So like for me, you want to be aware of the room and you want to be self-aware, but the men in this state have failed the women of this state,
Sure,
without question, and they continue to do so
every day.
There are 10 counties in this state where OBGYNs do not practice.
Right.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Disgusting. That is, abortion is health care.
Right.
And people don't like to hear that, but oftentimes some folks don't like hearing the truth. And that is a fact. OBGYNs are scared of being arrested or litigated or just having their offices burnt down in these counties. This is a problem. I mean, these are the kind of things I would be also looking to solve. I mean, there's so much in this state that allows this system to continue on like it does.
Yeah.
The straight ticket voting.
Yep.
The way year after year after year, legislative session after legislative session, they go after abortion. They never put it on the ballot.
Well, and everywhere they put it on the ballot, even in
people have
Republican
spoken
states.
in support.
The
people unanimously went out and supported a woman's right to health care.
Yeah, absolutely. Ohio just recently did it.
Kansas
is deeply red.
Deeply.
So and I am for a party like the Republican Party that spouts that they are for the people and that they are representative of the people. The fact that they won't put something like abortion on the ballot, the fact that they won't put legalization and decriminalization of marijuana on the ballot.
Yep.
If they really want to allow for the citizens of the state of South Carolina to have a voice, put it on the ballot.
Well, and another way they hold us down is we don't allow for citizen initiatives.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, again, how can you say you're a true conservative Republican if you don't support, we the people, all that nonsense you hear, we the people are pissed off, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Well, we the people need to be able to, put things on the ballot that are important to we the people.
Yeah.
And they have put institutional blocks in place that do not let us do that.
Yeah. So with healthcare in mind, how do you envision addressing healthcare challenges here in South Carolina? What's because obviously some of the challenges here in South Carolina, we have an opioid addiction issue.
Yes.
And we definitely have an issue with obesity is one of the big ones here in South Carolina. I know because I am one.
I'm no slender man myself, my friend. So expanding Medicare and Medicaid is the first way to, not Medicaid, Medicare is the first way to help. As a whole, this country sucks at taking care of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
As it's well documented, and I don't want to get too much into it, but I lost my mother a few months ago after a short but difficult battle with brain cancer. And the hoops we had to go through, the obstacles we had to circumvent, it was tough getting her the level of care she needed and access to services. And, again, I know it annoys people, but over in Europe, they don't have these problems. They take care of their elderly. It's not a burden for the grieving and surviving family to have to navigate all this.
Yeah.
My parents made good plans, and even still, we had problems. I mean, it was very tough having to navigate that, on top of knowing I'm losing my mom shortly. So it's not ideal to have to, shepherd your parent to their death while like navigating the healthcare system in this state, in this country.
Yeah, I think that's one of those. I want to say it's the monster under the bed is what people. The fact that there is this idea that in places where there is socialized medicine or universal healthcare, that there is waiting periods for just seeing a doctor or things like that. It doesn't exist.
It's nonsense.
I'm trying to think of the word, but it's false.
It's hogwash.
Yeah, hogwash. I was trying to think of some monster hiding in the bushes or something like that. But it doesn't exist.
It's the boogeyman in the basement, right? I mean,
it's non-existent.
The modern Republican Party. And I want to be clear on this. Let me clear my throat. The modern Republican Party loves to chase red herrings and boogeymen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Wokeness?
Yeah.
I know what they mean, but I mean, seriously, can you like show me a picture of wokeness?
Yeah.
What a bunch of crap that is. That they're, again, it's back to what I said earlier. They have all the potential in the world to establish real greatness and governance in this state.
Yeah.
And they drop the ball consistently chasing bullcrap.
And the craziest thing is in South Carolina, the bar is set so low. There is so much that could be easily done to benefit everyone. Every time they come up with one of these state budget surpluses, the first thing the Republicans do is they sign a bill to send the money back out in checks to everybody. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Give it to the teachers. Give it to a few years ago, we tried to negotiate a raise for the state employees of 8%.
Yeah.
Ray Felder and I think, I don't want to speculate, but Ray Felder and two other state house members returned back with a 2% raise rebuttal. They finally ended up settling on a 3% raise. A 3% raise doesn't even compensate for inflation.
I have worked at places where I've got my last job I worked at. There were several years where I got a 3% raise.
Oh, me too. And that was it. That was the best you could do. They're like, Matt, we just don't give these out. And I'm like, so you want me to kiss your ass because you gave me a 3% raise?
Yeah. I tried to tell my boss one time. I said, well, just so you know, you're only going to get 3% more productivity out of me over the course of the next year. Don't be disappointed because you told me not to be disappointed. It's absurd.
It's frustrating. And, I always tell people you got to, if you want to do it in life, you want to take your career, whatever you're doing to the next level, there are times when you're just going to have to eat a shit Sunday. And I don't know how better to describe it.
Totally true.
And
totally
if
true.
you're not willing to do that, enjoy whatever it is you're doing at the level you're doing it. You're not going to see the sort of growth that you would like to see.
Right.
You might even find yourself topping out.
Stagnant, yeah.
So, I've eaten a few of those Sundays.
Look, yeah.
With a smile on my face.
I've been in the private sector for, 24 years, something like that, it happens 90% of the time. But the difference between a 3% raise for teachers and a 5 or 6 or 7% raise, first of all, again, the state of South Carolina, it's fake money. They can work that into the budget and take care of something like that very easily. You turn around and so let's say they already had something in the works for state teachers in South Carolina where they were going to go ahead and give them 7 or 8%. You come out with a budget surplus. What's the next opportunity? Medical debt. Why not take that state-owned, potentially state-owned medical debt that's already in the books against people and start clearing some of that out? Because you're right off the top, you're going to increase someone's ability to. You take that off their records, they're going to have the ability to buy a house or buy a vehicle. They could potentially find a better job there where they're doing credit checks on things like that, and that's something you can't just get rid of.
So that's great, and I don't think the state runs like lean, and this is the Lean Six Sigma part of me.
Sure.
So
sure.
DHEC is a great example.
Yeah.
That is a monolith of a state agency that needs to be cut probably into 3s, but definitely into 2. because it's handling two things that I don't think jibe well together. So we need to remove like the Environmental Protection Agency part of that work and the mental health part of that work,
Right.
and create two agencies that deal with those issues individually and independently. I feel like we need to take a closer look at how we run our government agencies in this state. There's ways to get things done around here. Somebody just needs to be willing to make some changes, and we do need to take a harder look at, bringing in revenue streams that we've denied ourselves. We give these sweetheart deals, besides marijuana and gambling. We give these sweetheart deals to a lot of these companies to come in here.
Absolutely.
And they don't pay their share. They don't pay for the impact of the roads that they're tearing up with these delivery trucks. And they don't pay for really a whole lot. And, Clarios down in Florence is a great example. They had a car battery recycling facility.
Yeah.
They ended up going out of business during COVID. That site is a Superfund site and will never be able to be done with anything again. When you recycle car batteries, you break open car batteries, spewing lead and acid into the entire air and environment in the facility and around it, saturating everything in lead and sulfuric acid. I know that because I used to go work in that accursed place.
Wow.
So when you work in there, you have to wear special clothing and a self-contained breathing apparatus. You have supplied air. It's a very lethal, toxic environment. And they got a sweetheart deal to open that business, and now it's sitting there waiting to be cleaned up.
Anything else you wanna talk about before we move on as far as candidacy?
Oh no, we can move on to whatever else. Here, let's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just please.
Let's rotate in some decorations.
Just put that right there.
There you go.
That'll work. So, well, first of all, before we move on to anything else, website, donations, everything, we're working on that.
Yeah, so I have myself set up on PayPal and Venmo. Go to the website. There is info on the website. It is a work in progress, so please don't judge it too harshly.
Sure.
Matt, MATTV, the number 4 sc.com.
All right, I'll make
it rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Matt V4SC. It's nice and short. It doesn't make people spell that monolithic last name of mine. So look at that.
I'll make sure it's also going to be in the show notes, so you can check out show notes and you can click. So you're taking donations already for a campaign.
Yep, and I've received several $100s in donations over the last several days. The people of York County are very excited I'm running. I'm very pleased with the response I've had. People respect me throwing my hat in the ring, and I think, they like knowing that somebody with some experience and who has established a name and reputation in the town is going to go take this fight up, because I worry if we were to have a less experienced Democrat running in this situation. I don't know if
I agree
that would be good for this particular instance.
Yeah.
But in the future, I would like to see somebody step up. We need more Democrats in York County stepping up and rising to the occasion. They're there. They just need to kind of peek their heads up and say, hey, I'm here. I mean, we've really seen a lot of growth in that area. We have a group of public education advocates called CAPE, C-A-P-E, Community Advocates for Public Education. And they've done a miraculous job of building numbers and being really great advocates for issues that affect teachers and students and everybody in the public education system, parents. And they've been up in Columbia with me on several occasions advocating for student rights and all student rights, too. They're there fighting for the trans kids because they deserve a public education just like every other kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm excited.
I am too.
Super stoked.
And honestly, if I didn't think you were worth the effort, I would not have agreed to come and work for you, because
I appreciate that, Habibi.
All right. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing and when you come on the show is talking about some of the current events and things like that, which I haven't gotten to do on some of the latest episodes because it's either been Dungeons and Dragons or it's been
or local mayors talking
local
about
mayors.
preserving breweries and whatnot.
Unfortunately, they can't be super partisan, and I know that it's not something that you want to do.
I'm not necessarily super partisan, but
Yeah,
I am
exactly.
a Democrat. Woo-hoo.
but-
Let me say that again. I am a Democrat, and I'm a proud Democrat and a forward-facing Democrat.
I see the girl on the television right there. I've tried to get her to come on the podcast with us. She unfortunately is under the subjectivity of
Working on a major network.
a network that they won't.
It's different.
They won't let her.
Public broadcasting.
We'll get her on one day. This is just some of the recent news headlines that you and I haven't really talked about, but I thought it'd be kind of fun. So Congress voted to expel New York Congressman
George Santos.
Yeah, George Santos. 105 GOP lawmakers sided with nearly all of the Democrats to expel. And I know I mentioned Nancy Bass earlier. She's South Carolina's 1st district out of Charleston.
She decided to get rid of him?
She did not.
Neither did Ralph Norman.
Yeah, neither one of them did. There is, I think, one of the things that I kind of would really like for everyone to talk about or to at least express their opinion about is this idea that if the House comes back with serious charges of crimes that were committed, if they have the evidence that they have found through committees and investigation that an individual has done things that are against the law, but also ethically against what a representative of the representative of the nation, political leader, whatever should be. How do you continue to support someone staying in office like that, besides just having to acknowledge that they're doing it because that's a number in their favor?
So me, as somebody who's run for office, I have a dog in this fight.
Yeah.
And I have a strong opinion about this. When we allow people like that to continue to serve and we don't, as a group of elected officials, stand up and say no.
Yeah.
It besmirches all of us. It leaves shit on everybody's hands.
Yeah.
And that's my issue with, people like Nancy Mason, Ralph Norman not voting to expel him. I get you want to be the you kind of want to toe it for the team a little bit, and they don't want to sow discord within the party, but that's not what this is about. I mean, because that's the excuses that Ralph Norman gave, is he's like, I just didn't think this was good for the Republican Party. And I'm like, man, how could you say that? I mean, it's bad for all elected peoples.
Yeah.
I mean, Republicans, Democrats, Independent, Green Party, Socialists, whatever you got.
Yeah.
And so he has a contract with the citizens of his district and the people of America. So he failed that contract, and he has been legally found to have committed crimes at this point. As well as the ethic. Wait, that part hadn't completed, so we're waiting for the legal process to complete, right?
He has been indicted.
So he has been indicted.
Indictment to me is because a grand jury had to take a look at that evidence and then decide whether or not to move forward.
I think
with
it's beyond
charges.
a reasonable doubt.
Correct.
Is a that's the standard for them.
I've been on a grand jury before,
Okay.
so basically, in my opinion, a grand jury takes a look at something and issues an indictment of charges. That to me is indication enough that the state has provided, or the federal government has provided, enough evidence to support that there was a crime committed.
Well, and if they're going to convene a grand jury, that's like their way of saying, we got to make sure we're going to pin this on this guy.
Yes, exactly.
Because a lot of time when they just take it to trial, it's a roll of the dice sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe guilty, maybe not.
Yeah. So next is the Republican primary debates that have you watched any of them?
I've watched several of them, not all. I wish I could remember to watch them, but I think we know this about me, and we might as well just let me say it. If wrestling's on, I'm watching wrestling. So if they're on Wednesday from 8 to 10, I'm watching AEW.
Yeah, that's fair.
And if they're on Monday from 8 to 11, I'm watching Raw.
Well, we've seen the field has fallen from 13 or 15 or 18 Republicans down to 4 plus what will eventually be the nominee. So 5, I guess.
Yeah.
Whom do you think of those 5 will actually be? And I know this is speculation, but who of those 5 do you think will actually be on the ballots for the primary?
Trump.
Yep.
Nikki Haley.
Okay.
Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, I feel like those are going to
Full
be the
stop.
three. I don't.
Maybe Chris Christie.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that Chris Christie. I don't think there's any point in Chris Christie doing it. I think there is a good point
To him, he's clearly got a personal axe to grind.
Oh,
here,
for sure.
and I get it.
Yeah,
And but yeah, I mean, I don't think Ronnie D's going anywhere.
I think Chris Christie was in the room when crimes were being committed.
Yes.
And he is so mad at Trump for potentially involving him.
Well, and I think the guilt he must feel as like a former, wasn't he like a state attorney
Governor.
or attorney general?
He was
He was governor.
attorney general and governor.
Yeah. So, I mean, the guy's an officer of the court. It's
Yeah.
got to like chap his ass that he potentially broke laws or definitely broke laws.
Kevin McCarthy recently announced that he will be leaving his office as late as the end of this month. He did come out and say that he would be happy to serve, or well, he would consider serving, which is basically saying, please, dear God, Trump, please put me in. But he did indicate a couple days ago that he would be willing to, or he would consider serving on Trump's cabinet, which, by the way, Trump's cabinet. So the reason that a president has a cabinet is that he has individuals that have the experience and the intelligence to provide feedback to the president on decisions, whether it has something to do with infrastructure or health or military, I mean, basically anything involving the structure of the United States.
And they tend to be check valves too.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They like help like keep things in line. But I mean, I don't like talking a whole lot about Trump because I don't want to like fall into the like petty name cally, like immature side of it. But let's have a serious discussion here, if you will. So like his cabinet, this is no jokes, was a circus clown show.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was a bunch of, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
Rudy Giuliani was the America's mayor during 9/11.
Yeah.
I mean, and now look at him. It's just a nonstop menagerie. And I'm sure, folks, everybody listening, Donald Trump is probably going to be on the ballot for a Republican presidential candidate.
Yeah.
And he could seriously win this election again. I don't want...
Well, that's why I prefaced it
watching
as...
the heartbreak I saw when Trump won the first time, when I told people, I think he's winning. People laugh me off, and I just, they weren't seeing the things that I was seeing and the way I was seeing it. They were too emotionally invested, and the Democrats have got to, once Biden wraps up his last term in office, which I think he can win. He's got my vote. But once he wraps it up, the Democrats got to sort out presidential candidates.
Well, and I think
find somebody under 70.
I think Gavin Newsom is coming out as not that I'm fully backing Gavin Newsom.
I like Governor Newsom. And he has it all, right? He has the look.
Yeah. And
he's a very good talker. He's got the experience. He's got the resume. He's done things for and in California. But that's, it isn't an ageism thing. People who are experienced and have accumulated all this generational knowledge and wisdom are very useful in governance. I feel like it's time to move away from the model of septuagenarians and octogenarians being our chief executive.
Sure. I think that of what we had available in 2020, I think Biden was the Democratic nominee we needed.
Yes.
Did I support Bernie Sanders? Wholeheartedly.
I supported Mayor Buttigieg.
Yeah.
My son's a Bernie bro. My 21-year-old son loved Bernie.
Yeah. Still
has a Bernie sticker on his 2004 Corolla.
My Bernie magnet's back there on my billboard.
But I like Cory Booker a lot. I hope he's able to like rise to the occasion as time moves on. But we're kind of like waiting for time to move on in the Democrat Party somewhat.
Yeah.
And we have like some great leaders in this party, people who have established a name, have established credibility and shown an ability to actually lead.
Yeah.
Like Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom.
I think Kamala Harris easily can
Kamala
be
Harris, for sure. I don't understand people's dislike of her. Is it the strong woman thing? I mean,
it's not legitimate. It is. I think that it has more to do with their own fear of. So the idea of her running for president and becoming the nominee to say, let's run against somebody like Donald Trump again, or that type of Republican candidate. I think that a lot of people have a fear that a woman, despite the fact that Kamala Harris was, the district. What was her? She was the AG, right? She was attorney.
Yeah,
general.
she was attorney general for the state of California,
and
she put
was
criminals in jail.
Yeah, she was harder on crime for for California than almost anyone before her.
Yes,
and it wasn't because she was unfairly just. It was because there was a sense of cut or dry. This is a crime. You've been found guilty of this crime. You're going to do the time. But there was also recognition in some of the drug crimes in California, where weed is now legal.
Yep.
There was leniency on things like that, despite the fact that there are federal laws in places. So she was a fair but just attorney general, and I think that Kamala Harris has the potential to be a more profound leader in the Democratic Party. Does that mean that she has to play the role of a secretary at some point or something like that? I don't know. But I think I see, and I know the polls don't indicate it currently, but I think that I see that there is an upswell in voter registration over the course of the last 6 months. Thank you very much, Taylor Swift.
Yes.
And I think that Taylor Swift is using her powers for good.
Yes.
And I think that there is, and so I'll just say that if you are in any way upset or potentially concerned about the polls that you're seeing, understand this: pollsters don't poll people unless they voted in a primary. They do not have access to individuals who have never voted in a primary. So that has a lot of these voter registrations. There's been 600,000 new voters registered over the course of the last 6 months. Those people have not been tapped. So that doesn't mean that we should potentially feel like we're safe. I think what that indicates is that we need to work harder to get more.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, the poll numbers should excite people, not scare them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
inspire.
Yep, Trump doesn't have the energy to sustain what he's, again, the more he talks, the more he does his Trump stuff, the more he's going to hurt himself. He's got a big stain on him now.
Yep.
I just don't feel like in the long run he's going to be able to beat Joe Biden.
I don't think so either. And I'm also going to say this, and I know that this is prognostication of an event that may not happen before the election, but he's going to be found guilty in Georgia. It is absolutely. I especially with every time a new defendant in that case turns evidence against him because they're looking for a plea deal, he's going to be found guilty, which means the potential is if it does happen before the election, he doesn't get to be on the ballot in Georgia, and he needs Georgia as a win. He can't get to 270 without Georgia.
State.
So
it's too big a state.
And ultimately, I don't care that Biden's going to be 82 when he's potentially elected at the end of next year.
Trump's 3 years younger than Biden? I mean, we're acting like, let's get that young and Donald Trump in there,
vibrant,
78.
that vibrant 290 pound, whatever. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask you about, being a Tampa Rays fan. Tampa Bay Rays are officially staying in St. Petersburg.
Yes.
Being originally from Tampa, St. Petersburg, what's your take on that?
I was hoping they would move the team to Tampa. As somebody that's traveled the world and America as much as I have, I love the feel and sort of environment of these stadiums that are like in the city center.
Yeah.
it's really awesome. Even going to like a Charlotte's Knights game in downtown Charlotte, uptown Charlotte, is awesome.
Yeah.
But where the Rays play now, it's far. It's St. Pete is not Tampa.
Yeah.
A lot of people come from Tampa to the game, and you have like a choice of 2 bridges that you have to drive over to get over there if you're coming from Tampa. The traffic is bad heading out there. The games usually start right at rush hour during the week.
Yeah.
But they're building a new stadium. The Rays Stadium now was not built for baseball. It was built as a multi-use stadium. The seats don't even face home plate. I've been in real baseball stadiums. I know what it should look like.
Yeah.
It should not look like Tropicana Field.
So,
but Tropicana Field holds a special place in my heart. I saw Guns N' Roses there in 1992 with Soundgarden as the opener. I don't believe Axl came out on stage till somewhere around 11:30 midnight.
That's that. So that I've seen Guns N' Roses, and yes, Axl typically does not show up until about quarter way through the set.
Soundgarden crushed it, and then we had like 2.5 hours and nothing.
So you mentioned the new stadium. It will still be considered even the new one will be considered the smallest stadium in all of Major League Baseball because it's only going to have 35,000 seats. It's an increase of 10,000 seats, which, by the way, Tampa Bay had an extremely difficult time getting people to fill those seats, even on the run through the playoffs. And I think that had an effect on their run in the playoffs.
The most attended Rays games are Boston, New York,
Atlanta,
Toronto,
because
all these snowbird cities.
These fans travel very well. But I've seen a rendering of the new stadium, and I think it looks amazing.
It does, and I look forward to, people aren't coming, so why are we going to build a 70,000 seat stadium? It doesn't make any sense.
No, agreed.
Raymond James Stadium, where the Buccaneers play, seats almost 80,000.
Yeah,
they fill that thing even now with Baker Mayfield as quarterback. So.
Go Falcons.
Whatever, shitbirds.
So we're recording this. We're recording this on December 9th.
Bucks and Falcons are playing on Sunday.
Falcons are going to Tampa tomorrow to win yet another SEC or another NFC South game this year.
Let him bake.
All right. Honestly, it was a pleasure having you here. Thank you for coming to the big media studio.
Yeah, I love you, brother. Thank you for having me again. And
I look
one day we got to get Kimmler and I in the room.
I know. We're gonna make that happen because I think honestly, what I'll do is I'll just open the show and then let the two of you go at it for not go at it, but
do our thing.
I think it would be a fantastic conversation.
And I look forward to seeing candidates on here. I know you got some coming up in the future. I'm excited about that. And we got an election year coming up. All the state house seats are up again. We'll bring them all in here, man.
I'll go ahead and put it out there. Emily Mayer, because I know she's listening.
Yeah.
I'm going to be going down to Bluffton in January to go sit down with her. Which is very exciting because I didn't know anything about her until about a year and a half ago, and I started following her on Twitter. And she's running for Bluffton City Town Council.
Yep.
And that special election is taking place in February. Mm-hmm. So if you live in Bluffton, and I know people in Bluffton live there, listen to this because I see the numbers as far as like where the people are listening from, and we've got 15 or 20 listeners in Bluffton. And I support Emily. Emily is a young professional, was a teacher for a number of years, and she has a vision that is going to. I get Bluffton's on the map, but she's gonna put Bluffton on the map.
Emily's a very good friend of mine, and I could not be more excited about another human being achieving things in life than Emily.
I can't wait till she's governor.
She is such a fantastic person, and man, her parents have got to be so proud of her. I can't say enough good things about her.
Yeah.
She really impresses me, and she was always super supportive of me, whether I'm running for office or doing other things in life. She's always been like a real ready, steady supporter.
Yeah.
And love that young lady. I'm glad you're going to get to go do that.
Very excited. So, Matt Vilardebo, thank you very much for being with me.
Barrett Gruber.
I can't wait to start working on all of that. If you want to check it out or make any donations, you can head over to mattv4sc.com. Again, that's mattv, the number 4sc.com. Where he's taking donations, and also we're going to have all your platform and everything out there, so people can read through that and know exactly what it is that you're there for. And of course, I guess communication through any of the social medias.
Yep, I'm on Facebook. Just search Matt Vilardebo, you'll find me.
Yep.
There it is. I've been on hiatus from X or Twitter, whatever we're calling it. And I tried Threads. That didn't last.
Yeah.
So Instagram and Facebook right now. I might venture back onto Twitter. Who knows?
I have to call it Twitter still, because literally I go to twitter.com to get to it. And it didn't occur to me when he changed the name to X. It completely bypassed me, of course, that SpaceX, and mostly because I know what happened. It was a Tuesday night, and he was mad about something, and he was like, he called his program and was like, change it all to X, change it to X. And because that's the mentality that this Elon Musk has, is that he's this super rich guy that can just say, do this, and then it happens, and there's no reason for it. There's no...
Well, and he's like successfully turned himself into something he's not. He did not invent those Tesla cars.
No.
He's like a
he didn't
corporate raider of sorts that came in and is an investor and was able to muscle out the actual inventors of the car.
He didn't create SpaceX. SpaceX existed before.
He didn't design
Elon
those
Musk.
rockets.
Yeah,
He's not a scientist.
Fundamentally just Elon
It's like
Musk.
when people call Joe Rogan a prophet or a philosopher.
Oh, Lord.
Game show host.
I hope that yeah. And I'll admit, I think Joe Rogan's been fairly entertaining lately, and he's not.
I'm not knocking his entertainment capacity,
Yeah.
but it's just sometimes people get a little ahead of things.
Way too invested. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. This is number 186. Yeah, 186. So thank you, Matt, for again being here. Also, links to all of our past episodes, podcast platforms, merchandise, and social media are available on our website, theallaboutnothing.com. And if you think our financial model of giving away free content and entertainment is silly, and you're in the giving mood, why not become an official Nothinger to support the show? Visit theallaboutnothing.com and click on the support link near the top of the page. You can subscribe monthly at a varying levels of memberships. They give you access to early access as well as exclusive content that's out there. So do that. Visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can join our Discord channel and click on the banner at the top of the webpage. Please subscribe and share the show. Like us and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Threads, all the stuff that we talked about a minute ago. It's all out there and available. Thank you all very much for listening. You all stay safe and have a great week.
Peace, y'all.
The All About Nothing podcast is produced and engineered by me, Barrett Gruber. Thanks to Cake for our intro music, Sick of You. You can follow everything Cake the band at cakemusic.com. Thanks to Muff the producer for our outro music. You can follow Muff on Instagram at Muff the producer. I am Barrett Gruber. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Barrett Gruber, or visit my linktree /Barrett Gruber. Want to support the show? Visit our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com, and become a member. There are several tiers available, including memberships that give you early access to episodes as well as exclusive content. Visit theallaboutnothing.com. To find links to our social media, merchandise, and past episodes, visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be heard on the show, you can call and leave us a message. Dial 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is more than you can handle, check out our partner podcast. Zach and I host What the Pod Was That with Carrie Simmons. Visit whatthepodwasthat.com for links and details. Me takes a deep dive down the rabbit hole in episodes of Welcome to Wonderland. Available on all the podcast platforms. Visit WTWLpod.com for details. As well, you can listen to the political and social conversation between Dr. Jamela Brooks and Bill Kimmler on Black, White, and Blue in the South. Available wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe and share this show. If you're on YouTube, please like and hit the notification bell. Thank you for listening. The preceding podcast is a product of Big Media and copyright 2023, all rights reserved. The All About Nothing podcast is a part of the GOT Podcast Network and a product of Barrett Gruber Entertainment and Media.